Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Max McAllister, back with another Cycle with Max. Today I'm going to show you a couple tricks to help get you home if you should happen to have your derailleur cable break while you're out on a ride. Now, I like to always preface this with a properly maintained bike is not likely to ever break a cable. So depending on your mileage and usage each year, every 1 to 2 years, again, depending on mileage, you should have your cables replaced on your bike. And then that kind of prevents these roadside breakdowns. But they're pieces of metal made by men, so sometimes they fail. Now, we're not going to be concerned about your front derailleur cable breaking because you're going to be able to get home pretty easily if that breaks. When derailleur cables break, the derailleur defaults, the rear derailleur defaults into the hardest cog to pedal. And that's kind of the problem with trying to get home. So come on back around to the back here. And so here's our rear derailleur. And as I shift into an easier gear, in this direction, the cable, if you notice, is getting shorter. So the cable is pulling the derailleur into an easier gear. Now, when you shift into a harder cog, springs inside the derailleur are pulling the derailleur back down the cassette, okay? So what happens is, if your cable were to break, this derailleur is just going to shoot all the way home and default into the hardest cog, okay? In the case of your front derailleur, if the cable broke, your bike would drop off of the big ring and go down to the little ring. So you're not concerned about that. You can still get home, you know, even on a compact drivetrain, a bike will do 24 miles an hour on the little ring. That's plenty of speed, and you still have 11 gears to choose from. So we're not worried about that one. This one we're worried about, because it would be difficult even on the little ring to ride it any distance home, or particularly if you're in any hilly terrain. So there's a couple of things you'll have to do. So first, you kind of got to make sure that the broken cable is not going to be dangerous to you in any way. Now, on internally routed cabled bikes, it's pretty much not going to be a problem on any level because nothing's going to fall out, get tangled in the chain or sprockets or anything like that. You will have to pull the rear cable housing off and put it in your jersey pocket, okay? You may have a little piece of cable or something here, but they don't really tend to break right here at this area, but it might. So if your cable does break, you'll need to find a way to safely pull it. You can do one of two things. You can wrap it around your frame if you have to. Now, obviously, if you have a really nice bike, you don't really want to do that. So you can come up to the front of the bike and actually pull the cable out. Whichever way, you'll see the cable housing is routed. You can pull on it. It's not going to be attached anymore. The housing will come loose. You'll see the inner cable lining, and you can take that out, coil it into a little bar, and leave it hanging here. I mean, a little coil, and wrap it, you know, through itself several times, and it won't. Then it won't bother you while you get home. So now, if you have an external cable bike, you might actually have to take a couple of segments of housing off and put them in your jersey pocket to make sure that nothing falls off the bike or entangles in your wheels or brakes. All right, so first step is just make sure nothing's going to get tangled or hurt you there. Now the next step is you don't want to try and ride your bike all the way back home in the hardest cog. So there's two ways. With a multi-tool on your bike, I'm holding a screwdriver just to make this easier. But with the flat blade screwdriver on pretty much any multi-tool, what you're going to do is find what the high limit screw on your derailleur. Now, there's two screws here. You know what? You might be flustered and you might be bothered about this whole thing on the side of the road. If you can't remember which one to turn them in. If you're not a mechanic, and you're going to have to take your bike to a mechanic afterwards anyway to get your cable replaced, what you're going to do is turn the screw in, and if you'll watch, it's going to start moving across the cassette. See it moving across? Okay, you're not going to get a lot of range, But what that's going to do is it might move you over 2 cogs, maybe 3. So this will put you into a couple easier gears. That's kind of the minimum you can do if you have absolutely nothing available to you and you haven't planned for this possible disaster. So that's kind of where you're at. Now, so let's see, let's kind of put this back about where it was, something like that, let's say. Now, in another video, I showed you the kind of the basic stuff that I like to put into a spares kit. So if I have a shift cable break, I get into my spares kit, and in my spares kit, I pull out this little magic guy here. This is a piece of a derailleur cable. Now, you can make one of these, or sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get one for free. So if you ever build a bike from scratch, there's many derailleurs will come in their shipping package with a little piece of derailleur cable in it to keep the derailleur in a partially open position so that it's safe for shipping and packing. Normally, you pull this out and most people just throw this away. This is a great handy tool for a roadside mechanical failure. Now, if you don't have one, you can get a cable or have, anytime you change your cables, save the 2 cables that come out, cut these off, and you want to try and solder this end. It's difficult to get the solder to stick to these things, but once you do, it's good. You just don't want it so that it'll unravel and fray. Now, so we've got this little handy-dandy thing in our toolkit, and what we're going to do is use this to pull the derailleur onto an easy cog and then lock it in place. Now, on a road bike, you have your thumb wheel adjuster here for which sets your tension on your cable so your bike indexes gears perfectly. Okay? I would start by screwing that in, so now you have the maximum amount of range available to you. And what you'll do is, this is all going to be gone. There won't be anything here. There's just going to be a hole here. And what you're going to do is put this down through that hole, and there's the nut where it catches right here, okay? And you'll pass that through. What I've got in my hands here is a mountain bike derailleur. It's slightly different, but for the purposes of our demonstration, I'm going to show you the difference between the two, between mountain and road. So, you'll have a multi-tool. You'll need whatever it is, a 4 or 5 millimeter Allen. But what you can do is pull the derailleur onto whatever cog you want with the little cable. Make sure the cable's got a little tension on it and tighten the bolt. And then the derailleur will stay right there. Now you'll only have this one speed in the rear, but now effectively if you put it on a nice easy gear, you can use a little ring, big ring, and you can actually have 2 speeds that'll give you a pretty good range to get home. So you'll just kind of push your derailleur over with your thumb. Right? And if you have a friend standing around and you're not very dexterous, you can just have someone help you. But you can pinch it like this, if with your other hand. So there's a couple ways. So all we're trying to do is trick this derailleur. As you see it moving, we're just trying to trick it, tighten the cable, and then now we're going to be able to get home easier. So here's the catch. For a mountain bike, you'll have to get it really exact. You may have to play with it. Take your time. It may take you 5 or 10 minutes on the side of the road to get there, on the side of a trail if you happen to be on a mountain bike. You got to get it right on a cog, or it'll be like it's stuck halfway between gears. So you don't want to do that. So on a mountain bike, there's no way to adjust it other than to actually really precisely set the cable. Once you set this on your road bike, you can actually use your adjuster, barrel adjuster, to precisely index right onto a gear. So if it's clicking, you can just find which way it takes to move it. And I'll show you some tips on setting this stuff on another day. But it's pretty obvious. You're just trying to get the derailleur to line up exactly with a cog. And when you look at your chain as it comes around, you're just trying to get a nice straight line going through the derailleur on one of the cogs. So if it's going tick, 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 it's either touching the cog above it or the cog below it. So you just want to get it adjusted to where it's centered. And then you'll be able to ride home. You might be on a single speed or you might be on a 2-speed, but certainly it's better than a bicycle that's stuck in overdrive, then you might have 10 or 20 miles to get home. So there's a quick tip on how to trick your derailleur in case you ever have a cable break. So it's a Cycle with Max. Please subscribe to my channel, and if you've learned anything from these videos, share with your friends who ride bikes too, and let's share some knowledge and all be better cyclists.